Hello, biologists. Welcome to class. Today we're going to talk about animal body plans. So in our house, we always joke that cats are semi-solids because they always seem to melt into whatever space they're laying in. So we have Parker melting off the couch and Max melting into a puddle. And so I wanted to show you their body plans as a visual of like what an adorable little body plan they have. But when we think about animal body plans, there's a couple things we need to consider. First is the size of the cells. So here we have a paramecia. This paramecia is a unicellular organism. It's reliant on diffusion to get nutrients into its body and to get waste products out. When this paramecia eats something, here's its food right here, it creates these little vacuoles of food from its oral groove. And then these vacuoles move around its body so that when they're digested and it's releasing ATP, that ATP is closer to these areas of the cell. When it's done and it wants to get rid of the waste product, it just uses exocytosis to release those vesicles full of broken down food components. So it's reliant on moving all of this nutrient and ATP and waste through diffusion. That means that this paramecia cannot get too big, because if it gets too big, it won't have enough time to diffuse things through its body. So it is constrained by its surface area to volume ratio. As organisms get bigger, their cells don't get bigger, they just become multicellular. So our cells are roughly constrained by the same issue. We still need diffusion to get ATP in and out of our cells. And so our cells are still stuck. We just have a lot more of them. We also want to think about three things related to body plans. One is going to be the symmetry involved and how their body is organized. That's what body plan means. We generally have a trend toward having a head, which we call cephalic, and putting all of your sensory organs on your head. That's useful for us as higher organisms. So that's a trend we're going to see in the animal kingdom. We also want to think about thermal regulation, which is keeping your body warm enough or cool enough, and bioenergetics, which is how much calories you need to run your system, because it is expensive to have a body. Lastly, we want to think about the types of tissues involved. We're going to have four main types: muscle, nervous, connective tissue, and we'll talk about those in detail. As a theme throughout this, I want you to think about form and function being linked. So the structures you have, and I'm showing you my fingers because these are structures that I use every day, they determine what you can do. I can't walk on these, they're not feet, but I use them for manipulating things. That's why they look like this. And so those structures were determined by the environment that I evolved in as a species. So my structure determines what I can do with it, and my environment determined the structure that I have. Our bodies are divided into planes. We have the sagittal plane, which divides right from left. So that's this blue bar here. It's showing you that this goat has roughly the same right and left sides. If you put it right in the center of your body, so like right through your nose as a human, then we call it mid-sagittal. These goats have bilateral symmetry. Unlike something like a cnidarian, they had radial symmetry. Think about a jellyfish, doesn't have equal right and left halves. It has similar halves all the way around its round little body. We have the frontal plane that's being shown in yellow. The frontal plane separates front from back. So in this goat, it's separating the back from the belly. That's different in us. Our frontal plane would separate our back from our belly, but it would divide us longitudinally instead of horizontally. So it depends where your back is to find your frontal plane. The transverse plane is showing you in red. It's going to divide upper and lower portions, upper being more cephalic towards your head, lower being more caudal towards your tail. That would be reversed in us as well. It would divide us right in the center, upper portion and lower portion. So the orientation of these planes is not fixed in space, like as up and down, but it's related to the body that you're looking at. We're going to have cavities in our body. If you have a brain, you have a cranial cavity. We have one of those as well. This is a horse as an example. Then you're going to have a spinal cavity. If you have a spinal cord, a horse does as well. And then here's where a little bit of a difference comes in. Our dorsal cavity is toward the back. So here, this is dorsal. And then our ventral cavities are toward the front. In our ventral cavities, humans have a thorax and an abdominal cavity. We have a dividing line in like an abdominal pelvic cavity where you put your bladder in your uterus if you have one of those. And that is also true for the horse, but ours goes up and down, right and left. Theirs is divided horizontally. The horse's back is here and its belly is here. So dorsal to a horse is along its spine and ventral is along its belly. In this orientation, for us, it's in this orientation. So it's about the body, not where it is in space. They also have a thoracic cavity, which is ventral, and an abdominal cavity, as opposed to the spinal cavity, which is more dorsal. Thermoregulation is really important for our body systems as well. It takes a lot of energy to maintain a multicellular organism, and there's two different processes to maintain that energy. One is that you can generate the heat yourself, so you can maintain a relatively constant body temperature. You may have heard this called warm-blooded. That's kind of a misnomer because snakes and other cold-blooded organisms aren't cold. They're just more reliant on the environment. So we say endotherm because your therm, your warmth, comes from inside. That's going to be mammals. Those are all warm-blooded. Here we have a picture of a bobcat. If it's ambient temperature, which is the temperature outside, is really cold, so chilly, chilly, almost freezing, that bobcat has, what is that? Here's 35, 36, 37 degree body temperature. And as it gets hot outside, 40 degrees Celsius is like 102. So that's really hot outside. That bobcat doesn't become much hotter, still below 40 degrees. And that's because if your bobcat was to get too warm, it would die. And if it was to get too cold, it would die. And so it's an endotherm. It's maintaining its body temperature constantly, regardless of what it is outside. Animals that use endothermy, they're going to have some kind of insulation. It can be fur, it can be fat, it can be feathers, but they're going to insulate their body from the exterior environment. In contrast, an ectotherm, ecto being outside and therm for heat, they're going to get their heat from the environment. So this snake here, when it's cold outside, when the ambient temperature is almost freezing, its body temperature is almost freezing. It can't move. It's going to be very inactive. And it still needs to do things. And so it's going to have certain behaviors that help it warm up. As the temperature gets warmer throughout the day or throughout the season, the body temperature of your ectotherm warms up in relation to that outdoor temperature. So if it's 100 degrees outside, it's going to be 100 degrees inside your snake. So they rely on the environment. They're not cold-blooded because when it's hot, they're hot-blooded, but they don't maintain a constant temperature. Now, for thermoregulation, there's a couple ways that we can get rid or store heat. If we're going to try and get rid of heat, we're going to use evaporation. This is why our bodies sweat. So evaporation is removing heat when you transition this liquid water from your body to a vapor that pulls heat out of your body. So that's evaporation. Radiation is where we get heat from on Earth in general. That's going to come from our sun. This is electromagnetic heat. So that's what your ectotherms are really going to rely on. You can get heat from directly touching something. That's conduction. So this is a hot cup of tea. I have my hot cup of coffee right here. As I hold my coffee cup, I'm pulling the heat from the cup into my body. That's conduction. And you can lose or gain heat through convection. Convection's moving air over something. So if you bake, you might use convection on your stove, which swirls the air as it heats up to try and evenly heat the food. This lion is being shown in the breeze. It's breezing its mane. And it's probably cooling itself by using convection and evaporation. Here we have an ectotherm that's showing you these different ways that we can regulate temperature with behavior. So this lizard is an ectotherm. It's going to be reliant on the environment for its body temperature. So it's going to do something called basking. It's going to find a nice surface that's been heated by radiation from the sun, and it's going to put its body on that warm surface, and that's going to help it heat up more quickly. So it's going to get direct radiation from the sun, reflected radiation from the sun, but also conduction from this rock. So that's why basking is so nice, because it can heat up more quickly. It's also going to be losing heat through evaporation. And if there's a cool breeze, it'll be cooling because of convection. But if the breeze is warm, maybe it'll be heating because of convection. So this lizard will bask when it needs to be warmer, and then it will move into the shade when it needs to be colder. So it will regulate its behavior to help regulate its body temperature. We have an internal thermostat that we use in thermoregulation as an endotherm. And this is a good example of homeostasis, which will be our last topic of the lecture. So we'll get into it in more detail. But in general, your body has a set point of temperature. For humans, it's about 98, which isn't actually true. It's usually like 96 for most humans. And as your body gets warmer, as it's hotter outside, or as you're moving your body, your physiological responses are going to help cool you down. So you're going to dilate your blood vessels, which is going to get more heat toward the external parts of your body that can be lost through just radiation. You're going to sweat, so you can lose heat from evaporation. You're going to try and breathe in more air, calm your system down. And as you do that, your body temperature will decrease and hopefully return to normal. If your body temperature becomes too cool, you're going to do the opposite. Your blood vessels are going to constrict, so you're going to take your warm blood and you're going to put it more towards your vital organs, your brain. That's why your hands and feet get cold first. Frostbite always occurs on the hands and feet because we take the blood out of those areas first. They're not vital. We don't need them. We want them, but we don't need them. You're also going to stop sweating. You're going to get goosebumps, which doesn't look really impressive now, but when we were covered in hair, it gave us a little layer of air insulation. Each single hair on your arm, on your body, has a muscle connected to it called an erector pili. And when you get a goosebump, that little muscle pulls on that hair, and so it straightens up to help give you a layer of insulation. You're also going to shiver. And shivering is movement, and movement creates heat. So that will help warm your body up. And hopefully that will put you back into your normal body temperature. So homeostasis is going to be regulating a set point within your body, and you're going to go above and below that set point, but it's bringing you back to it. I have a video about thermoregulation on Blackboard for you to check out. It's pretty cool. It's going to use this example of birds and how birds stay warm. Bioenergetics is using energy from your food and how those energies can be used to keep you going, because it's really expensive to have a multicellular body. The basic amount of energy you need to just stay alive is called your basal metabolic rate. So when you're just sitting and reading a book or maybe napping, but you're not using any extra movement or energy or thinking very hard, your calories are going to be involved in keeping your heart pumping, keeping your digestive organs working, keeping your brain active, making sure that you blink periodically, keeping your respiration rate going. All of those things cost energy even when you're not doing something. So that's your basal metabolic rate or your resting metabolic rate. You can calculate it. There are calculators out there that give you the equation. And it does take into the fact that we have to maintain a lot of calories to keep our bodies warm as endotherms. So extra energy is always lost as heat. We call that like entropy. Entropy is always increasing. There seems to be a trend. Smaller organisms that are endothermic have a higher basal metabolic rate than larger ones. And that might feel counterintuitive because you're like, shouldn't it take more energy to keep something big going? But the systems are so different. and the needs are so different that it turns out to be a little bit reversed than what I think is intuitive. Active animals are always going to have a higher metabolic rate than inactive ones. And so here, if we look at this, we have a little harvest mouse and we have an elephant. We have their mass. The little harvest mouse is about 35 grams, so itty bitty. And then our elephant is 4,500,000 grams. I'm sorry, 500,000 grams. So pretty big. The metabolic rate of this little warm-blooded, heart beating really quickly, needs to be constantly eating mouse is 890, as opposed to this elephant, which is slow moving, lumbering, still needs to eat constantly, but its heart beating is a lot slower. It's going to be 75. I think of it as like the loss. The amount of energy needed to create heat in something so small is constant. You don't want to lose it to the environment. And the larger organism, the elephant, can maintain heat more efficiently because it has body mass. That's part of it, but it's also their lifestyle as well. Now we get into tissues. We have four main types of tissues that we use. We have epithelia, which is going to line everything. It's your skin on the outside, but it's also your mucosa membranes on the inside. Think about your mouth through your throat, all the way through your digestive tract. We also have epithelia lining our organs. So everywhere around your body, things are lined with epithelia. We have connective tissue. Connective tissue connects things together, but the things that are in connective tissue kind of feel counterintuitive. An example would be like tendon, but also bone and blood. Those are also connective tissues. We'll talk about them too. And then muscles, our third type, they generate movement. We have three types of muscles. We have the ones that we voluntarily control, but we also have cardiac muscle and we have smooth muscle, which we don't control. We'll talk about those as well. And then lastly, we have neurons. Neurons generate and send electrical signals. They're going to control our whole system. So that's going to be our feelings, our sensory organs, and our responses to our environment. Let's look at epithelia first. We name epithelia based on how many layers there are. So if there's one, it's simple. If there's more than one, it's stratified. And this shape. Most of the shapes make sense. Cuboidal is cube-shaped. Columnar is column-shaped. Squamous, that's a word that doesn't make sense for most people, but it means scale. So someone thought it looked like a scale on a lizard. I think it kind of looks like a fried egg. Some people say squamous. I say squamous. Both are appropriate. Say it however you want. And then lastly, we have a fourth type called transitional. Transitional is pillow-shaped, and it's only found in your bladder. And as your bladder fills with urine, the pillows get compressed, and that's what tells you that you have to urinate. So that transitional cell shape allows them to expand and shrink, and you are aware of that and can appropriately empty your bladder as needed. Here is our squamous epithelium. This is a simple squamous epithelium. It's just one layer. Kind of looks like a scale, kind of looks like a fried egg. Here's the nucleus in the center. All this tan color is cytoplasm, and then you have your cell membrane as a purple barrier here. This is stratified squamous epithelia. This is going to be someone's skin. So this is the epidermis. Here's the layer that's going to be more waterproof and protective. And then you have lots and lots of squamous cells all the way to the bottom. This is separating your epidermis from your dermis below. And so these cells are constantly being grown because we shed our skin pretty regularly. We also have cuboidal epithelia. Here is the drawing of cuboidal epithelia. It's kind of cube-shaped. They're often in circles because they line glands. So here's your cuboidal epithelia. Kind of looks like pie slices. The nucleus is in the center there. Here's what it actually looks like in the microscope. Now you can see it's more cuboidal, less pie sliced, and the nucleus is in the center there. This is a hollow space of a gland, so something would be secreted here. We have simple columnar and pseudostratified ciliated columnar. This is our columnar cells. They look long and narrow like a column. Here's the top, here's the bottom. Here's the animation or drawing of it. These are column shaped. Down here, we have another row of column shaped. There's cilia on top. Cilia help increase the surface area. Here are these long columnar cells. You might be asking, what's the difference? Check out these nuclei. These nuclei are more up and down as opposed to these one being in a straight line. This is simple columnar because there's one layer of it. They're all organized. Here, the nuclei are in one layer. This is pseudo-stratified because it looks like there's two layers given how the nuclei stack like this, but it's not quite stratified, so we use the prefix fake or false. This is falsely stratified. So when you see the nuclei bouncing up and down, that's your key that it's pseudo-stratified instead of simple. Then we get into our connective tissue. We have a couple different types. We have loose areolar, we have dense, we have fibrous, we have cartilage, which is going to be the caps of bones and used in our joints. We have bone itself. We have adipose, which is so cute in the microscope, and we have blood. And you might be like, why is blood a connective tissue? How can it possibly adhere to things? But it does connect every parts of your body because every one of your cells is within 3 other cells from a capillary. And we need all that blood to carry our oxygen, to carry our nutrients, to carry ATP and stuff around, and to get rid of waste, to get rid of carbon dioxide. All of our connective tissue together feels like a weird grouping, but they have similar patterns. There's going to be cells, often called fibroblasts, and they're embedded in a non-cellular matrix. The matrix is whatever something is sitting in. So I'm in a matrix of air right now. If I was in a pool, I would be in the matrix of water, but it's whatever's surrounding you. So in this, we're going to have cells surrounded by something that's non-cellular. For example, a bone cell surrounded by all that calcium tissue that makes your bone hard. Here's a nice table from your book that tells you the type of cells found in each of your connective tissues, where this connective tissue is found, and what kind of fibers are found there. So you can check that out, the table from your book. And then let's look at them. This is blood. Each one of these pink dots is a red blood cell. They're really small. These purple structures, these are white blood cells. So these are probably macrophages. That might be a basophil. And then if you look here, there's these little pink dots in between your red blood cells. Those little pink dots are platelets. So the purpose of our connective tissue blood is to bring oxygen to your tissues. That's what the red blood cells are for. But it's also involved in your immune response because that's what the white blood cells are for. And in healing, which is what platelets are for. The process of stopping bleeding after you get injured is called hemostasis. Stasis being stationary and hemo being blood. So this blood connects all of your tissues, bringing oxygen, nutrients, and taking away carbon dioxide. Over on the right, we have adipose. Adipose were originally called ringlet cells because if we look at this one, it kind of looks like a ring with a diamond on top. So all of this part here, the white part in the center, is filled with an oil droplet. That's how we store our extra energy as humans. We store it as lipids. That's true for other mammals as well, and for fungi. Plants, they store their extra energy as starches, so they're going to use a different molecule. This is a giant lipid driplet. It's so big that it pushes the nucleus to the side. That's why the nucleus is up here in these joints. And then the pink around it is the cell membrane. Adipose is really important as a cell. It's going to cushion your organs, but it's also important in hormone production. Now we have loose areolar tissue and fibrous connective tissue. This looks a little willy-nilly. It looks like you would be able to wade through it. So that's loose. It's got cells. Here's some cells, but it also has this collagen fiber matrix. That's loose areolar tissue. This is going to be surrounding different organs. And we have fibrous connective tissue. This doesn't look like you could wade through it. This looks solid. It looks crunchy to me. That's how I see it in my head. It looks like it would snap if I were to chew it. This is mostly just collagen fiber. We do have cells in here, so there are cells in this matrix, but this would be something like a tendon. Then we have bone. Bone is made of these round circles called osteons. And then there's holes in the center of your osteons for blood supply. So this is an osteon here. It's a big one. It's kind of elongated. Here's an osteon. And each of these little dark circles in the rings of your osteon, if you kind of think about this as a cross-section of a tree, in between the rings of the tree, those are where the cells are found. The cells of bones are called osteocytes. Cyte means cell, osteo means bone. And they have little connecting projections that allow the cells to talk to each other. So that's why there's all these lines in your bone. The matrix around your osteocytes is the bone calcium complex. So it's all that mineral deposit there. And there are three types of muscle tissue. We have smooth. Smooth muscle does not have stripes on it, so we call it non-striated. It's involuntary, and it has a single nucleus. This is going to be found in all of your organs. So smooth muscle controls when your intestines are going to squeeze food through, how to dilate your blood vessels, your pupils, whether or not they let in more or less light. That's all smooth muscle. Your uterus, smooth muscle. So involuntary movement of muscle that we're not controlling, that's smooth muscle. Next is cardiac. Cardiac muscle has these really strong discs in between them. They're called intercalated or intercalated discs. Either way you want to say it, totally cool. It's got a single nucleus. It does have striations. This image is not showing a ton of striations, but it does have stripes. Those striations are from overlapping filaments of actin and myosin. And cardiac tissue is involuntary, which is great because you don't have to think about keeping your heart beating. It's only found in your heart. And some people feel like they can increase or decrease their heart rate by thinking about it. And you can psych yourself out. You can think about your crush, or you can meditate and you can increase or decrease it, but it's not voluntary because you can't stop it. If it were voluntary, you could just stop it on command or start it on command, like I can move my fingers on command. And so we can't do that. It's not a voluntary muscle type. We do have a voluntary muscle type, luckily. It's called skeletal muscle. It is striated. Here you can see those little stripes. It's got tons of nuclei. So all around, they're shoved to the side because these cells are filled with fibers called actin and myosin. That actin and myosin is what cause these striations. And you can move this muscle on command. So I'm using it right now to move my mouth, to move my tongue so I can talk to you, to move my hand. But I'm also using it to control my diaphragm so that I'm controlling the amount of breath I'm letting out as I'm talking to you. And Max is under my chair right now, so I'm using it to pet him with my foot. All of that is skeletal muscle. It is voluntary. Nervous tissue, its whole goal is to receive and send electrical signals. Our neurons, which is the big one in yellow, have a couple parts that are important. We're going to talk about nervous tissue in more detail later in the term. But here, all these branches are called dendrites. This is where they get their signal. Then we have the body of the cell. Here's its nucleus. There are tons of mitochondria in this because we need a lot of ATP to use our neurons. If you're thinking really hard, you can use up to 1/3 of your calories for a day, which is wild. If you ever feel really tired after studying excessively hard, it's because you've used so many calories and you deserve a treat. Get yourself a snack. This long part is called the axon. This is how the electrical signal is going to get delivered to the next cell. Here it's kind of showing you the next cell that it's going to talk to. And our neurons are not alone. They have other cells called glial cells, and we'll get into those when we talk about the nervous tissue. But here's an example, an astrocyte and an oligodendrocyte. I love that word, oligodendrocyte. Ins in sight, so you know it's a cell. Both of these are supportive cells, and they're going to help your neuron do its job. Our last topic for the lecture is homeostasis. So we mentioned homeostasis when we were talking about thermal regulation for endotherms, but homeostasis overall is one of our key features of life on Earth. And I hope it's something that you take away a little bit from every lecture. Homeostasis is maintaining balance. So here I have a board balanced on a triangle. And if the board is perfectly balanced, we say that it's at set point. But stimulus from interior or exterior is going to either increase or decrease your set point. So if we pretend this is temperature, you could get too hot or too cold. That would be an example of increasing or decreasing away from our set point. If this is too hot, I would detect that my body is too warm. I would figure out how to change it, and then my body would start to cool off and I would return to homeostasis. If my body gets too cold, so this imbalance is below the set point, the same thing would happen. My body would detect that imbalance, it would figure out how to fix it, and hopefully it would fix it, returning it back to the level set point. So homeostasis requires the set point. Stimulus increases or decreases away from the set point, and your body determines that. That's our receptor. It determines the imbalance. Our effector is going to change something physiologically in response to that imbalance. And ideally, that will change it in a way that takes your body back closer to the set point. What are some examples? Well, we have two types of homeostatic loops, which are the way that we regulate homeostasis. First one is a negative feedback loop. This is going to counteract the change. So if I get too hot, it's going to cool me down. If I get too cool, it's going to heat me up. Those are negative feedback loops because you're counteracting. That's where the negative comes from. This is the most common type of feedback loop. Almost all of our feedback loops are negative. There's only a few examples of positive. Most of our biological systems, for example, temperature, glucose, pH, blood calcium, those all rely on negative feedback loops. The example we have from your book here is blood glucose. So we have a set level of blood glucose that we want. And imagine that I just ate an apple and now I've increased my blood glucose. My body has to respond because I can't have too much glucose in my blood. I need to do something with it. It can't just sit there. So my pancreas will release insulin. Insulin is a hormone. It's a protein hormone, and it is used to make your cells take up glucose. Now my cells are going to start to take up glucose. That means that there's less in my blood and my blood level falls. Now let's say I haven't eaten for several hours and my blood level starts to drop below where it should be. So I'm below my set point. In response, my body is going to release glucagon. So glucagon is another hormone created by the pancreas. That glucagon is going to tell my body to start to release the reserves of glucose that I keep in my liver. Those are called glycogen. Glycogen is glucose storage. So I'm going to break apart that glycogen, create glucose, and I'm going to release it back into my bloodstream. And that's going to allow my blood sugar to return to the set point where it should be. Note that I didn't have to eat anything. I just used the reserves that I had stored. So this is going on constantly. We don't eat every hour, ideally. And so you eat a snack, you have too much, you have to store it. Then it's been an hour, it's been 3 hours, it's been 4 hours. Your body drops in blood sugar. You need to release what you have stored, and then you're back to your set point. But you only have so much storage, and that's why we need to eat theoretically several times a day. But some people only eat once a day, or maybe you're fasting for a holiday, whatever it is. But your body will make up the difference and try and get you back to that set point. Here's our example of a positive feedback loop. It is oxytocin, which is involved in childbirth. Again, there's only a few examples of this. This is one of them. Here we have the stimulus that's going to increase the stimulus, which is going to increase the response. And so it's like you're pushing it further and further and further away from the set point. Here's our example. I have a baby. It's in the uterus. It has an umbilical cord to attach it to the placenta, so it's getting all of its nutrients. This baby is ready to be born. And as it's ready to be born, its head will push on the cervix. As it pushes on the cervix, that physical change is received by your brain, and the pituitary gland starts to produce oxytocin. Oxytocin causes the uterus to contract. When your uterus contracts, that forces the baby's head onto the cervix even more. And so pushing against the cervix causes stretching in the cervix, which your brain recognizes and releases more oxytocin. So you get more pushing, so you get more contractions, so you get more oxytocin until eventually you end in childbirth, and then the stimulus that caused the positive feedback loop is gone. And so you don't push toward childbirth anymore. I hope that was helpful. Have a great day and email me anytime with questions. I'll talk to you soon.